Welcome to Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb with host Christina Nation, the ultimate guide for parents navigating the challenging yet rewarding journey of raising teenagers. Join your host Christina as she dives deep into the world of adolescence, tackling everything from academic pressures and social dynamics to mental health and independence. So please, welcome the host of Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb, Christina Nation.
Good morning and welcome to Kick Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Christina Nation, and we are streaming on Bold Brave TV. I am super excited today for my guest. I'm going to be introducing to you Cynthia Coufal, and Cynthia is a teen anxiety coach. She has a podcast and YouTube channel called The Teen Anxiety Maze. Cynthia spent 31 years as a teacher and school counselor in public schools. She started a podcast during the pandemic to reach her students since she couldn't see them face to face. This led her to wanting to have a broader audience than just the students in her school building. Cynthia now has clients around the US and listeners all over the world. Cynthia is a UMAP assessment certified. She uses the profile to help young people understand what their strengths, values, preferred skills, and interests are. This helps them find their why for tackling anxiety. So, welcome, Cynthia.
Be here today. This is fun.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I have been following your work and I have quite a few questions for you and a few questions that my community has asked me to ask you as well. But first,
Sure.
let's just start off with, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and why you chose to work with teens who are struggling with anxiety.
Well, I love teenagers. I have worked with teenagers I say my whole adult life. Ever since I became a teacher at age 22, I worked full time with teenagers that until now. So that's a long time to be working with that age group, and I still enjoy it so much. So that just made sense for me to continue to work with them even when I wasn't in the school system anymore. But my daughter also was diagnosed with anxiety as an adult. I think when she was growing up, we didn't realize that kids could have anxiety, or we didn't talk about kids having anxiety at that time because she's a millennial. So um, I feel like some of that was going on when she was younger, we really weren't up to date yet on how all that works. And some of the things that I look back on now, I'm like, oh yeah, that was happening. And then some things she never told me until we started talking about that I was going to be an anxiety coach and that she had been diagnosed. She said, Mom, I had my first panic attack in elementary school, in my bed at night when you didn't know about it. And that was the first I'd heard of it. And this was just like a year ago. So there was a lot
Oh,
of things that were
wow.
going on that I didn't know about. And I just thought this is definitely something I want to help kids with, and I want to help their families with it, because if I'm helping the teen, it's going to help their family to have a calmer home as well.
Right, right. Yeah, that's so important, and I think a lot of times, we might miss things, and so that's why it's so great to have this conversation so that we can help other parents who can catch the signs and best support their teens. So thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, yeah. So one of the questions I had is, speaking of, what are some of those common causes of anxiety in teenagers today, and how can parents recognize that their teen might be struggling?
Mm. Well, I feel like the causes are as large as there are things to be. I mean, you can be anxious about everything. one of the things I
Mhm.
try to do with my families and my teens right away is to normalize anxiety, that everyone has anxious thoughts. Now, some people, their anxiety does get so out of control that they are paralyzed by it or debilitated by it or have panic attacks. But everyone feels anxious sometimes, especially in new situations. And teenagers are going through lots of new situations, new classes, new schools, new friends, first romantic relationship, first time you drive, first time. I mean, there's just so many things. And, as adults, we feel anxious about things too, but we probably have something similar to it that we've dealt with before where we can say, oh, well, I handled that. So now I can handle this, where they just really don't have the same experiences. But I talk to my teens a lot about how our brain creates a lot of that anxiety, and it creates it in two different ways. One, it's creating it by our thoughts. So we're thinking anxious things. People don't like us. I don't know what to do. I'm going to fail this class. My parents hate me. The teacher hates me. I'll never find a romantic partner. All of those kinds of things. And then the more we think that stuff, then the more our body reacts to that, whether it makes us feel sick or gives us a headache or just wants to shut down in some way. And then some people, because of trauma or abuse, or maybe just sensitivities in their brain, that can create those anxious feelings without the thoughts. So they might be feeling totally fine in a situation, and all of a sudden anxiety and panic show up in their body. They feel that uncomfortable feeling, and they're like, wait a minute, i don't I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why this is coming on. And that can be that amygdala based anxiety where for some reason that's been stimulated and we don't even know what the reason is. It could be a smell, a sound, just some sort of thing in the environment that the amygdala is reacting to, but we haven't put thought to it yet. But almost always, if we feel those feelings, then our brain gets involved and wants to it wants to give us reasons why we're feeling like that. So then the thoughts still come in. And so I do a lot of thought work with my clients, whether it's reframing the thoughts that start it, or when our body feels anxious or have those kind of butterflies or uncomfortable feelings, or our stomach feels sick and we feel like it's something, then our brain starts making up stuff about why we feel that way. And so either way, we're working on the thoughts where that is concerned, so that they can so it can help them stay in a managed, more calm state. And then we do all of the regular things to learn about grounding and staying present and
Mhm.
deep breathing. We do all of that stuff too. But I spend a lot of time in the thoughts. And
Yeah.
um, and I know that's not where it all comes from, but we they come whether it starts that way or they come later. So we just work on those because I didn't know I could change my thoughts even probably into my 40s. I didn't realize I could
Hmm.
do that. And once I realized I could, it changed everything. So I just wanted everybody, I wanted kids to know about that. And I started talking about that in my counseling office at school before I ever had a podcast or became an anxiety coach. I just wanted kids to know that you don't have to feel this way all the time. You don't have to think these things. These are not true. They're just stories your brain's telling you. Let's tell a different story.
Right, right. Yeah, I also experienced anxiety into my adulthood, and it was really changing my thoughts that helped me as well. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the uh, doctors that I followed was Dr. Amen, and I liked
Mm-hmm.
his killing the ants method, where he talked about the ants were the automatic negative thoughts, and he taught you different ways to reframe those thoughts. And then I also read an amazing book called Renewing the Mind by my Pastor Casey Treat. And that book really allowed me to learn how to, choose my thoughts and challenge my thoughts and reframe them and think more positively so that I didn't experience the depression and anxiety. And it was life changing,
Hmm.
definitely. So I really appreciate your focus on, changing those thought patterns that can be so destructive. And it is such an important tool that, like you said and I said, didn't learn until adulthood. So if we can help our teens learn this skill early on, just think about, the amazing impact it's going to have on their life. So
Hmm.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, I used to tell them, I have the secret to the world. Just listen to me. I don't know that they always did, but it feels like the secret that nobody knows, and yet it is like it really is the basis for everything.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit more. Like you said in telling your story that, looking back, there was some things that you realized could have been signs that you may not have realized at the time. What are some of those signs that parents can kind of be looking for if they're, concerned that something might be going on for their teen?
Well, I want parents to know that one of the reasons why I missed that she had anxiety was that she was outgoing. And she
Mm,
loved being the center of attention. She was the star in the show, like the play at school, and she was a soloist, so she would sing on stage by herself. And so all for some reason, even though I'm a mental health provider, I kept thinking, well, she can't have anxiety because she's in front of people by herself, and she's, even at a young age, I could send her into a crowd of unknown people and she was totally fine with it. And so I kept
mm,
thinking, well, an anxious person would stay in their room with their covers over their head, or they wouldn't want to go in situations, or they wouldn't want to go to school. And she loved school. So um, that's one of the reasons why I missed it, because I thought it looked like a certain thing, and anxiety doesn't look like a certain thing. Your child can look like anything and still have anxiety. So when I look back, one of the things was she had a lot of fear about my safety. Like, it wasn't
mm,
about school, it was, I think you're going to die. And she
mhm,
would, like, if I was going to go somewhere on a trip, or even if I was going to be gone overnight somewhere, she was very concerned about that. And she would ask me a lot of
mm,
questions like, how are you getting there? And what's going to happen? And, what happens if something happens to you? What will I do? And I just thought,
mhm,
well, these maybe are typical things that kids worry about, because she was my first one to raise. I'm like, oh well, I guess all kids worry about these things. And later she talked about how she was worried all day long at school because in her mind, she had decided that if we were together, physically together, I couldn't die, but if we were
right,
separated, I could die. And so she said at school all day long, she would just think about, my mom could die, my mom could die, and I can't wait to get back home, because then, and she's there, and then she'll be fine. And so
mhm,
I didn't even know that that was her whole thinking. Like, she would
right,
sometimes tell me, I don't want you to go, or I don't want to go spend the night with my friend tonight. I'd rather be with you. And sometimes I was like, oh, well, that's nice. She wants to be with her mom. But really, it was
mhm,
this. And then one of the other signs that I didn't even think about until recently was she would grind her teeth all night long. And she actually ground her teeth so hard that she broke all of her baby molars, the big ones, and which is really intense. And I
yeah,
remember the dentist, and because they were baby teeth, they put some stainless steel caps over them because they were broken and they didn't want, them to have further damage to them. And I don't know why I didn't realize this, or she didn't tell me, but I know when she lost those baby teeth and we saw, and like they came out or they pulled them out because her teeth were kind of interesting where they didn't come out when they were supposed to. But those stainless steel caps were ground down. There were holes in the stainless steel cap. So she was still
Oh, wow.
continuing to grind so hard. And most of it was at night, but I wonder if some of it was in the daytime when she's so worried about me dying. She was probably
Mhm.
clenching her jaw really tight, and that was what was causing some of that going on. And she threw up every day before school for almost a whole entire school year.
Oh,
And
wow.
she was getting bullied, which I think was part of the anxiousness there. Like there were kids that were being really mean to her at school. But I would ask her about, do you want to go to school? And she would say, well, yeah, I want to go to school. And she wasn't sick. She didn't have a fever. I couldn't keep her home every day for an entire year. So she would
Right.
pretty much just throw up, and then I would take her to school. Or the nurse at school would say, well, she threw up. And I would say, well, is she sick? Because if she's not sick, she needs to stay there.
Okay.
And she never fought about that. Like she wanted to be there, but she just couldn't control this physical reaction that I think was to her
Mhm.
anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I definitely noticed in my youngest son from a young age too. Just starting with, I remember preschool drop-offs, and they were so difficult, and he would cry and cry and cry, and they're like, "Oh, it's normal. It'll just last a few weeks." It lasted 2 years, you know. So, yeah, yeah. Well, I think
It's
that's so
hard to know.
important. Mhm.
It is hard to know like what is a
Yeah,
problem and what is normal. And teenagers, I mean, the spectrum of normal is very wide. And so
yeah,
it's hard to know, what is something I need to, get help for, and what is something that we just need to work through at home. But I think anytime you have questions about that, maybe start with your general practitioner. A lot of kids feel better about seeing their doctor because, unfortunately, we still have that stigma with mental health that if they're going to their physical doctor, their pediatrician, or the general practitioner, it feels more okay to go do that. And so you can always start with them. They have some referrals or ideas about things. And sometimes there are physical things that cause anxiety and depression. I had a girl who had a thyroid disorder that she didn't know about, and she was self harming a lot and was
mm,
depressed. And when her parents first took her to the doctor, because that's always the easier first step if you are concerned about mental health or seeing a therapist, or sometimes it's hard to get into a therapist. So go to your,
yeah,
physical doctor first. And when they went and they did some studies and some blood tests or whatever, they realized she had a thyroid disorder. And as soon as she took medication for her thyroid, the depression went away. So there
oh wow,
are sometimes a physical reason why you're experiencing anxiety and depression that maybe you need to have that checked out before go to the next level of therapy or, anxiety meds or things like that.
yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, so I would love to hear a little bit about your 4 N's for managing anxiety.
Well, I actually heard about the 4 Ns first from my business coach, and she was using it for like if you didn't want to post because you didn't want to be exposed or something, she would say use the 4 Ns. And she was also a weight loss coach, and I think she used it in her weight loss trainings. But I thought, well, this is so perfect for anxiety. The 4 Ns are notice, normalize, neutralize, and next best action. So, first of all, we're
Mhm.
going to notice. And for in my program, the notice is how does it feel in your body? Because I want them to start pinpointing where do I feel anxiety? And not that it feels in the same place every time, but a lot of times anxiety kind of likes to be in a certain part of your body, whether it's that nauseous feeling in your stomach or the headache or your chest feels tight or maybe your throat feels tight, something like that. So I want them to figure out where are you feeling it in your body. And then we're going to normalize it, because almost everything we get anxious about, everyone gets anxious about. So if it's like, well, I don't know what this new school is going to be like. Well, of course you're worried about what the new school is going to be like. We all worry about things we don't know about. But, and like making sure that you feel like this is something that happens to other people. And as a parent, we need to be role modeling that, yes, I feel anxious when I go into a new situation. Will people talk to me?
Mhm.
Will people sit with me? Are they going to think I'm weird? Like we all worry about that even when we're adults. And then neutralizing it is that reframing of thoughts. So if your
Yeah.
thoughts are saying, don't go to school, it's dangerous there, or everyone's going to hate you, or you know, don't ask that person on a date because no one would ever want to date you, or you're never going to learn to drive a car, whatever that is, how do you reframe that to something more neutral? Like I used to tell
Mhm.
kids, you're not going to go from everybody hates me to I'm the most popular person in the school. But you might go from everybody hates me to I have some friends. And I have some
Right.
friends feels better than everybody hates me. Now, hopefully, we can go from I have some friends to something a little bit higher than that, or something that even makes you feel happy. But we got to neutralize it first. So then that's that third
Right.
N. And then the fourth N is the next best step. So whatever you decide to do in that neutralizing, normalizing time, like what is the next thing I need to do? Like if I don't want to go to school, it's too scary. We've got to get to school. I mean, most parents are wanting us to go, and there's right now you legally have to go to school, and you could get in
Mhm.
trouble if you miss too much. So the next best step is to get there. And so, what are the steps to get there? Are we gonna, go, and when we go in, maybe we'll go to where we feel safe at first before we go to the first class, or will the school help me set up something where I have like a safe place to go? I get regulated, and then I go to class. Whatever it is that you can make happen, or whatever steps you can put into place. But then you need to do those steps, because when it comes time to do the steps, sometimes then our brain gets back involved, and we kind of go backwards again. Like, oh no, I don't think I want to do that. But we have to make that step into what is it that we've chosen to do.
Yeah, I love that. So the first step then again is notice. So like you said,
Mm-hmm.
noticing where you feel it in your body, notice what's going on for you. And then second step is normalize, because a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
we feel like, oh, nobody feels this way, something's wrong with me, so we want to normalize it. And then neutralize. And I love what you said. I've also learned that it's so important to when you're reframing that thought, to that it's got to be something believable, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like you may not believe, like you said, you're the most popular person, but you can believe that you do have some good friends. So I liked another thought was like challenging your thoughts. So like when you have a negative thought, thinking like, is this true? Is it
Mm-hmm.
really true? And what might be more true? Like you said, it might be more true that I have a few good friends, and so
Mm-hmm.
neutralizing. And then lastly was the next best step. So how do you take
Mm-hmm.
that next step to reaching that goal, or what you're trying to do in life? So I really appreciate that. That's easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. All right. And then can you tell us a little bit about your triangle formula?
Yes. So my whole program is based on the triangle formula, and there's three P's in that one. So I have the four N's and I have the three P's. But the three P's are perception, so understanding or being aware of our anxiety, and that comes from figuring out what are the mindsets that are kind of creating my anxiety. When my brain's involved, where does it typically go to? So I have some quizzes that I give my clients, but they find out that the three main mindsets that most people's anxiety is created from is either perfectionism, from
Mm,
over responsibility, and that's my main one, where we feel responsible for everyone's thoughts and feelings and safety. So
mm,
if someone asks me to do something and I don't want to do it, but I don't want to upset them, then I say that, okay, yes, I'll do it, but then secretly I'm angry about it because I don't want to do it. And so I've
mm,
had a lot of I spent a lot of time in my life avoiding situations where I was going to have to upset someone, which now I realize I'm not upsetting them. They're becoming upset by something they're thinking. Not because I said no. That's not why they're upset. They're upset because something they thought was going to happen isn't going to happen. But I felt like if someone's mad, it's because of me. If someone
mm,
doesn't like something, it's because of something that I've done. And so that's the over responsibility. And then there's intolerance to uncertainty, which I find that I would guess most of my clients tend to have intolerance to uncertainty. They don't they don't know what's going to happen when they go there, so they don't want to go there at all. They don't know what's going to happen when they ask someone on a date, so they're not going to do it. They don't want to find out what's going to happen when they drive a car or when they graduate from high school or when they apply for the job, so they just don't do it at all. And so we
right.
find out, where is that? So that's that perception. And then we
Mm,
process. So I teach my clients how to allow uncomfortable feelings to be in your body and let them be there. Don't fight them,
mm,
don't resist them, don't be mad at them. I mean, that's our typical. I mean, I still do that. I have to remind myself not to, but if I feel a certain way that I don't like, that feels uncomfortable, I at first get mad at myself. Oh, you know better than that. Why are you thinking that? Why are you feeling that way? But that just makes it stay in my body longer because I'm
mm,
wrestling around with it. If I just let it be, emotions want to flow through our body, but most of the time we're stopping them in some way. We're, doing something
right.
that stops them from flowing. And so I teach them ways to process where you allow it to be in your body. And then in about 10 minutes, it's going to flow through and disappear. But we're so busy fighting, resisting, and getting mad at it that we end up making it last, or maybe we even make it worse, where it turns into a panic attack or something. And so I
Right.
teach them processing. And then the last P is planning. So when we're feeling regulated and we're in a good space, we talk about, okay, when this comes up again, let's use the thinking part of our brain that gets shut down when we're anxious and panicked. Let's use it because now it's fully online. We feel good. What will we do next time when we have an uncertain situation or our perfectionism is going to be peaked because we have an art project due or we have a test coming up or whatever it is that
Mhm.
we tip. I have a lot of like athletes and high end like dancers, and I had
Mhm.
a Olympic almost. She's trying for the Olympics in beach volleyball, and I've
Oh, wow.
had other D1 players. Like there is a perfectionism in that. Like if you want to be
Mhm.
or you want to be Olympic or you have to be really good. So you have to like kind of push yourself in that direction. And so, if it's perfectionism, what's going to happen the next time there's a competition? How are we going to plan for that coming up? So we know we have like, this is what I'm going to do because our brain is going to shut down if that comes up too high. And so if we already have planned for it, we'll be much more likely to follow through with some steps that we wouldn't have if we didn't think about it ahead of time. So that's the triangle part. So we perceive the in our bodies, and then we plan for it in the future.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So important. So, kind of let's talk a little bit about how our parental role, right?
Mhm.
Um, how can parents effectively support their teens struggling with anxiety without overwhelming them or making the situation worse? So let's say we've noticed some of these warning signs and we've had the conversation asking our teen kind of what's going on for them, and they share with us that they're feeling, that they're having a hard time because of their anxiety. You mentioned speaking with a pediatrician. Are there other ways that you would suggest that as parents can best support our teens?
Well, I think one of the things that as parents we want to do is we want them to not feel uncomfortable or bad. And so whatever they
Mhm.
say they don't want, like I don't want to go to school, I don't want to take this test, I don't want to learn to drive, we sometimes take those things away because it makes the house nicer. If we're not fighting them
Mhm.
about going to school or doing these things, and we say, okay, well, just forget it, don't go, or we take the challenge away, which makes them feel better. But then they get the idea that, well, I can't make this better because even my parents don't believe I can make it better because they're taking it away from
Oh,
me. And so we have to kind of let them feel that uncomfortableness and still push them in to going to school or doing the thing that they're anxious about. Now, maybe we do it in steps, or maybe we, but we always have to be getting them going towards the thing that we need them to do because we need our kids to go to school. I mean, if they're going to public school or private school, we need them to go there. That's how our house is set up. We can't just now what do we do if they stay home? Because then that disrupts our day or our work or and then it disrupts the whole family. And so
right.
you have to find a way to get them to do the things. And sometimes you need help with that, whether that's, maybe you need to talk to your doctor or do a therapist or something. But we need to not take the challenges away from them. We just need to help them. And we need to role model a lot. We don't talk, I don't think, at least I don't remember doing this. We don't talk to our kids about what we're going through. And
Mhm.
we don't have to tell, secrets they don't need to know as kids, but just like that kind of, I talked about it a little bit earlier where, oh, I have this thing going, I have this presentation at work, or I have this thing that I'm really anxious about, but here's what I'm going to do to help me. And so then you're role modeling how do you process anxiety? Or I'm trying to think about one of the things that always made me anxious as a mom is when my schedule got messed up. Because and I'm still like
Mhm.
that. And I'm just, all my kids are out of the house, but I like things to happen at a certain time. And so if
Mhm.
my kids were here now and my schedule got messed up, I would say out loud, oh my gosh, I'm really feeling anxious right now that this thing has happened and now I have to rearrange my schedule. But then I would role model, okay, gonna take a deep breath. How can I fix this situation today? How can I rearrange my schedule? And always after I would have kind of a meltdown about things got messed up, as soon as I like fixed it or thought through how can this be different, sometimes it was way better than the way I had planned it to begin with. And so I would even say that out loud, like I was really upset about that, but now I see I have this extra time here that I wasn't going to have, and I'm kind of happy about it. So just
Mhm.
showing you can go through something that bothers you and you can be uncomfortable, and I'm going to stay in a calm-ish space so that I can think through this and realize, oh, well, it's going to be fine. This isn't the end of the world that my schedule got messed up. Or, it isn't the end of the world that I didn't get this job promotion. And you can talk about it at your table when you're having supper with your kids or whatever. Like I worked really hard to get this promotion and I didn't get it, but you know what? I'm going to do this, or this is my next step, or these are the things I'm planning to do. And then they're seeing that adults also have to deal with this, and you're showing them how to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so important. So, like you said, it's, in today's world, especially, a lot of parents really don't want our teens to struggle or be in pain or discomfort. And so we tend to kind of rescue and fix and remove those challenges. But when we do that, we're not helping them develop the resilience and the coping skills that they need to be successful, happy adults in life, right? So
Yes.
not removing those challenges, but instead trying to help them, like you said, process and work through like that, finding that next best step, and just
Mhm.
taking it one small step at a time, is going to be better for our teens and helping them feel capable and that they can do hard things, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And then, like you said, it always starts with role modeling. And we talk
Mhm.
about that, I think it's been brought up in every single show so far, right? Is it starts with us parents, and modeling for our teens. And, oftentimes with depression or anxiety, it does kind of run in families, right?
Mhm.
So oftentimes us as parents have struggled with our own anxiety. So then we, role model for our teen what's coming up for us and how we're dealing with it so that we
Mhm.
can teach them the skills to do the same. So I
Yeah.
think that's so
Well, and
important.
that was
And
something I thought
speaking
of when
of,
you that if someone isn't dealing with I mean, if they don't have a good handle on their anxiety or their depression, they need to be getting the help that they need so that they can be this role model. Because if they're totally dysregulated and out of control, they're not going to be able to help their child with that. So, they should be honest with themselves that if they're not handling their own mental health, they've got to get that under control too.
yes, so so important,
Mhm.
right? We have to do the work first so that we can then
Mhm.
role model and teach our teens to do the work for themselves. So
Yes.
important. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. We do need to take a quick sponsor break. So we're going to be right back after this break. You are watching Kick Your Teens Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Christina Nation, and we have Cynthia Coufal with us. So we'll be right back after this break.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Kick Your Teens Troubles to the Curb. I'm your host, Christina Nation, and we're streaming on Bold Brave TV. And today my guest is Cynthia Coufal, and we have been having such an important conversation about supporting our teens struggling with anxiety. So thank you for being here. And we've been talking a little bit about some helping our teens with some coping strategies. But can you share some more coping strategies that you work with teens and supporting them to deal with anxiety that kind of help them get through their day to day?
I think it's important to have some things that they can do, even if they're sitting in class, you know, if they need, like, especially like test anxiety, those things where you're not going to be able to go and have a meditation, or you can't leave the room, like you have to stay there. And how can you find ways to manage or feel those uncomfortable feelings and still stay in the moment of the class? And so we talk a lot about being present in the moment and using our five senses. And so when it comes to like test anxiety, I talk to them a lot about, as they're going to the class, really pay attention to their five senses. How does my feet feel as they're walking towards this class? What does the handle feel like in my hand when I open the door to the class? What sounds am I hearing around me? When they sit down at their desk, to, feel the desk with their hands, and, feel their feet on the floor, and feel the pencil or pen in their hand. Like just really staying present with what is happening right now in my world. And one of the things that I teach my clients and their parents about is having a physical survival kit, is what I call it. And the survival kit, and it has in it just stuff to keep you present. So it's just some of the things that I never even thought about before were things like sour candy, like those nuclear warheads that I remember we used to play around with or whatever. But that's just that taste, something that's like really tangy or maybe really minty, something that is going to, bring that sense of taste into your awareness, something that feels different than the normal. I found these like inhaler sticks. They have like lavender smell, different like essential oils in them, and you can just breathe. And so it's a different smell that you're smelling.
Yeah.
And it isn't just like, like sometimes in those, what are five things you see? What are four things you feel? It's like all those things. But when it gets to smell, I'm always like, if you're just sitting there, it's like, I don't smell anything, or maybe, but sometimes it's like, well, I don't know how to smell something if there's nothing here. So there's things in this kit, and they could have it in their backpack or in their desk, or I talk to parents about having it at home too, if panic attacks happen at home. But that, there's things to smell in there. There's things to taste. There's things to feel. There's things to manipulate. There's like fidgets in there. There's just everything is in this one, like a little makeup bag, or if it's a boy, we don't talk about a makeup bag, but like there's like a pencil bag, like anything that's just small that you can just put in your backpack, or it can be in your car, it can be, on the shelf at your house, in the bathroom, wherever people feel more panic, just you can take it anywhere. I even talked to school counselors about having one in their office, because I remember as a school counselor, I would get kids that would come, a teacher or somebody would send them to me with a panic attack, or, being anxious about something. And I wish I would have had this, because I didn't come up with this until after I left the school system, but it would have been great to have that. And many times I was called to the nurse's office with someone having a panic attack, the principal's office, or they would say, go down to this bathroom in this hallway. There's a girl in there having a panic attack. And I was going everywhere, sitting on the floor, wherever I needed to be so I could be with these kids. And if I would have had this little survival kit I could have taken where I could just ground them in the five senses, and everyone's going to have different ones that are better for them than others. That's why I have something for all five senses and kind of a variety of things in there so that whatever was going to help them manage or feel better or like start dealing with those uncomfortable emotions, there was probably something in there for them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that. What we have in common is I actually was a behavior specialist in the school district for many, many years too. So I also worked a lot and also work with my parents a lot about how important it is to co-regulate with our teens
Yes.
and often use the five senses for grounding as well. So I definitely love that. And then also there are, you know, different accommodations nowadays that can be asked for in schools as well. If your teen is really struggling and it's seriously impacting their performance at school, right? So there's different accommodations that you can ask for, but having that survival kit with you, I can see would be so very helpful. And then being able to have that safe space or person to go to during the school day if needed, which could be your school counselor or your favorite teacher or anyone like that. So that's great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a few minutes left. If you could just quickly tell me a little bit more about how we might be able to, help our teens build that resiliency. Like you said, it's so important to teach them how to process, instead of taking away the challenges, have them help them work through and process those feelings that are coming up, those anxious thoughts, and teaching them uh, to challenge those negative thoughts. Are there any other ways we can help them build that resiliency?
Some of the things I also have my clients do is I call them power sentences, but every morning coming up with a couple of sentences that really make them feel excited or proud or whatever feeling they're needing for that day. What is something you could think that is going to create that feeling inside of you that's going to help you be more resilient when, because we can't control, what happens and people are mean sometimes, or, a class is hard, or, I mean, there's just like so many things that could dysregulate us. And so, what are some things that we could constantly be thinking, almost like a mantra in a way, but it's just a sentence or two that make you feel confident in your day. And I have them either, just write them where they can see them somewhere. Sometimes I have them take a picture of it from their phone and then maybe make that their screensaver. And so anytime they look at their phone, they're seeing those power sentences, kind of reminding them of, oh yes, I can handle this today. I will
Mhm.
make it through this situation. And also looking at the world from the hero's point of view instead of the victim's point of view. So a lot of
Yeah.
times I tell them a story from both sides, and it's like, oh, this is the same person. These are all the same situations, but this person thinks about it like this, and this person thinks about it like this, and then we just talk about like, how does it feel if you're thinking about it like, well, this is the worst day, or how does it feel when you think, oh, I can handle it today? Like that feels better. And since we get to
Mhm.
choose, why wouldn't we choose the thing that helps us to feel better? One of my
Right.
clients brought up that they really like instead of saying I have to go to school, say I get to go to school. I have this
Right.
opportunity to go to school. And even, that helps you to feel better to think, oh, I get to instead of I have to. I had a
Mm-hmm.
boy once told me, it was when I was working in the schools, he said school was prison. He hated school, it's terrible. And I said, well, if you think it's prison, why do you come here? And it's kind of most adults are not like asking that kind of a question. And he was really taken aback for a while. And he was like, well, don't I have to come here? And I was like, well, not really. I said, there's plenty of kids that don't show up for school ever. We had some that, they were gone I don't know, 100 of the 180 days or whatever. And he was like, well, wouldn't I get in trouble if I didn't come to school? And I said, well, you probably would be turned in truant and, your parents might have to go to court or whatever. And he was like, well, I don't want that. And I was like, okay, well, so you're telling me you're choosing to come to school? You want to come here? And he was like, well, I guess. And I was like, well, choosing to come here, then wouldn't it make more sense or be better instead of thinking this is prison, that you're thinking, oh, well, I'm avoiding truancy or I'm avoiding, these other things I don't want. I said, most adults don't want to pay taxes because that's like money we worked really hard for and we have to, give it to somebody else or whatever. But I said, I would rather pay my taxes and be okay with it than the other things that could happen to me if I don't. And,
Right.
like your whole life, you have to make these decisions. And sometimes both choices are like, I don't know. But I said, it's going to feel better to come to school every day if you're not thinking, I hate this. This is a prison. Maybe you could think, oh, I only have X amount of days and then I'm out of here. Or, this is a
Right.
step towards my job that I'm going to have, or a step towards college, or, whatever it is that's going to make you feel better, think that because that is
Yes,
what.
I love that. If
Mhm.
whatever is going to help you feel better, think that.
Mhm.
I think
Exactly.
that's a great way to end our show today, Cynthia. This has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much. Can you please let our audience know how they can learn more about you and follow your work?
Well, I have a podcast and a YouTube channel. My podcast is called The Teen Anxiety Maze, and my YouTube channel is just under Cynthia Coufal Coaching because I kind of put some other things on there besides my podcast, but all my podcast episodes are on there as well. And my website is cynthiacoufalcoaching.com, and you can find out how to work with me there and just read a little bit more about what I do. And my podcast is also on my website as well.
Wonderful. I feel if you have a teen that's struggling with anxiety, that hiring an anxiety coach is so important to
Mhm.
helping them work through that. And for me, if you are, worried that your teen might be struggling with depression and aren't sure, if you should be concerned and reach out for help, then go to my website, empoweredparenting.family, and download your free PDF of 10 ways to distinguish between typical teenage phase or teen depression. So you can get that at my website and grab my book, The Power of Everyday Grace, Parenting Teens with Depression. You can find the book in a companion workbook on Amazon. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
This has been Kicking Your Teen's Troubles to the Curb with host Christina Nation. Tune in each week as Christina features expert interviews, real-life stories, and practical strategies that empower parents to connect with their teens and effectively address their struggles. Here, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.